Xbox is over and we know who is responsible. Another title by Balila, which is very clickable. Got that nice juicy bait in there. But it's honestly probably going to just be like, one of the CEOs of Xbox or something of that nature, or Satya Nadella, and the shareholders giving pressure down on to Phil Spencer to keep making bad decisions. But let's just dive into it and see what my man's got to say.
30% profit margin. Lock that into your brain because it's what we're talking about today, because it's the number that is destroying Xbox right now.
This is something I saw a while back, but it's absolutely wild to me that they're trying to push Xbox to have 30% profit margins. Very few things, very few games even get close to a 30% profit margin, and Xbox has to hit that. Xbox had a 12% profit margin. That's insane. 12% profit margin is really good, and that is considered failure to a company like Microsoft. Like, Xbox just isn't making the money fast enough, and it's truly a goddamn tragedy that we're at this state in late stage capitalism that Xbox is gutting itself, tearing itself, and killing itself piece by piece because of a 30% margin. It's genuinely untenable.
And that's because Microsoft demands that Xbox hits this target every single year. But here is the thing, the games industry is not the enterprise software as a service industry, and that basically means that Phil, Sarah, and the squad are dragging a humongous anchor. One that their competitors don't have to, and if they struggle, they know it's going to be bad. Today's story exists because we finally know why Xbox has been burning everything to the ground. And to understand that, here's what the old Xbox was like according to Bloomberg. Game makers weren't asked to hit specific numerical targets. They were told to focus on making the best games possible without worrying too much about finances. So that Xbox, the Xbox that wanted to compete for its space in this industry, it is dead. The new Xbox, well, it is a profit machine that will destroy just about everything to hit its 30% target. That could be your favorite studio.
It makes sense. Think about it. Hi-Fi Rush, critically acclaimed. I think it made 2x the money, and they cut it because Hi-Fi Rush would not have made the money they needed to. It's truly short-sighted, and it almost feels like Satya Nadella and the board just want to sell off Xbox, and they want to show to the shareholders we tried to make profit, and they're going to spin off Xbox for like 100 billion, 125 billion, and let Xbox be its own separate thing. Because it makes no sense to me that Xbox as a company needs to be hitting these margins. It was already doing absolutely phenomenal, and now they're like, you need to be hitting 30%. 30% will shut everything down. From Hi-Fi Rush to all these other games, creativity used to be king. Creativity used to be the most important thing to the launch and the survivability of a game, right? You just need to be a good and fun game. But creativity is what made you hit the map. People go, oh my god, I love this, or I love that about the game, this unique system. And nowadays it's about profit, speed, efficiency. And it's truly a depressing situation.
It could be that game you're waiting for, it could be the entire concept of exclusive games. All of these sacrificed for one impossible goal set 2 years ago by their owners at Microsoft. Now, with all that's going on, I'm learning a touch of Dutch because I play WoW with Dutch people. I love the place, love my time there, especially in Efteling. And today's sponsor, Babbel, is how I am learning. It's an award-winning app that makes learning a new language.
So we're gonna let Balila play his ad in the background while we keep chatting about the Xbox situation. It's kind of interesting to me because in the context of, for example, Xbox as a whole, it's genuinely this depressing situation because they keep destroying things and shutting things down. But then you look at Blizzard, and Blizzard's doing just fine. The classic dev team got a bunch of money to make more games, to increase the studio and team size. But then I think about it, and it's like, Blizzard has very high profit margins, right? Think about it. In context, retail costs what? Maybe $300 million to develop an expansion once every 2 years? And that leads to, in the context, so for example, Blizzard is $300 million a year. And that ends up leading to an expansion that sells 3 to 4 million copies day one, right? 3 to 4 million copies day one. That's a pretty insane, pretty high profit margin. You have classic WoW, which of course they re-released Anniversary, 100,000 active raiders. It's still sitting at 74,000 at the end of the expansion, at the end of the experience. Mr. Pandaria, a re-release. I think it was done by like 5 or 6 people. had 200,000 raiders for a little bit there. TBC Anniversary, can't be more than 3 or 4 people working on that. Probably going to be 100, 200,000 raiders. Like, Blizzard is very easily hitting that 30% profit margin, but the rest of Xbox isn't. Now, if Classic Plus doesn't actually hit the 30% profit margin based on Xbox, are they going to shut down Classic Plus? Like, if they launch Classic Plus and say it costs them 50 million to make Classic Plus, like, I'm not sure the exact budget, clearly not 50 million, but hypothetically, does that mean Classic Plus gets what, shut down in a year? Because they canceled the ZeniMax MMO. They cancelled all these other games. Microsoft's been on a huge cancelling spree. It genuinely is worrisome for the industry in general, where you have a whole different corporation setting gaming metrics that aren't tenable or reachable by pretty much anybody.
To get a bit of tone in this, I need to go back to something from 2021. You see, then, Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, allegedly considered closing down Xbox, just stopping, getting out of games. Now, for what it's worth, Microsoft does deny this, but we do know something important, that even in 2020, Nadella was working out ways to increase Xbox's value to Microsoft. Now, this wasn't happening in a vacuum, and sometimes opportunities just happen to land in your lap, such as, well, Activision. And Bobby Kotick tells the story here. In 2020, Bobby reached out to his good mate Satya to help to buy TikTok. But rather than buy the brain rot machine, Nadella pulled Uno reverse and said, how about we buy you instead? And of course, 2 years later, Kotick was ready to sell, and they sorted out a deal within 3 days that was worth $75.4 billion. And as 2023 closed, the real chaos started. People expected some staff reductions at ABK from the merger. What they got was 1,900 people fired in one round, which was 8% of the new Xbox, and as we go on to find out, it was just the beginning of the roller coaster.
So look, what I don't understand about the acquisition from the beginning is they bought the acquisition to make more profit. And then as soon as they bought the acquisition, Activision is profitable, Blizzard is profitable, King is profitable. It doesn't change the situation at Xbox itself. Like, it doesn't make a single fucking dent over there. Like, them spending $74 billion to buy these 3 very profitable companies is one thing. It's completely separate, but it's one thing. How did this benefit Xbox as a brand? I honestly think Satya Nadella probably should have just shut down Xbox. It might have just been, or sold Xbox or spun it off like a bunch of other companies do when they're having like spinning off situations where they no longer have a tenable corporate structure. They just spin off a division. You're your own separate company or somebody buys it out from them. Because it just feels so dumb that like they spent this money just to then give unrealistic standards that aren't achievable for 90+% of gaming developers.
Last 2 years had been goddamn brutal. Thousands of staff are gone, studios like The Initiative and Tango Gameworks have been shuttered or sold, projects cancelled left and right.
It's fucking insane how many people they've laid off.
And all of that is before the price hikes. The consoles cost more. Games Pass costs way more. Everything costs more. Even though, throughout all of this, Phil Spencer and his team kept saying this.
And yo, Mossy Monk and Dizzy10, thank you guys for the follow. Welcome to the cult. I appreciate it. Dyra Chaos, thank you. I would pay a higher sub cost for Classic with a separate cost sub for Classic Plus easily. I wouldn't, like, if I could pick between retail and Classic, I would pick Classic Plus. But like, I don't think that's gonna ever happen. I think that's a completely, like, that's almost delusional. I don't think Blizzard would ever risk that, and I don't think Microsoft would ever allow that. But I think it would be nice. Like, I know a lot of people have been canceling their subs for Classic lately. I just don't think it's making a dent. I truly think the amount of people playing Classic and having fun dwarfs the number of people complaining online or being mad. I had this realization lately that we only see one part of the picture because the online vocal community is disconnected from the 90% that don't engage in these things. Because we can even use YouTube as a metric, right? Supposedly, there's 9 million people playing World of Warcraft in just the West. Supposedly. Let's say 3 million bots. 3 million, you know, half of those are like trial accounts, free, bot accounts, whatever, ban people that made a new account. So 9 million. Let's say 6 million players. I can tell you right now, there's not 6 million. There's no video on WoW that hits 6 million views. Even the most popular WoW videos don't even hit 1 million. Whereas other games that have 5, 10 million players, their videos hit 1 million, 2 million. So you can see that disconnect in the niche itself on just YouTube. And again, this is a very small correlation. It's not exactly 1-to-1. But you can see it on Twitch, for example. There is no big Twitch streamers in the WoW community aside from Zaryu and Peo. And it's like, you can see how you have a huge population of people that are completely disconnected from the online ecosystem. So what a lot of people see, like, just, oh, game good, game fun, I enjoyed leveling in Classic, I enjoyed this, and then a bunch of people just talk online, and they're, like I said, a complete disconnect between players and the people that discuss it. I would honestly say that a lot of the people discussing WoW online aren't even sub to WoW. But let's just get back into the video.
Same thing. Quote, we have more players, games, and gaming hours than ever before. Our platform, hardware, and game roadmap have never looked stronger. And that really didn't make sense to us, given everything else that we saw. I mean, how could Xbox be at its best ever while having to make humongous cuts to its staffing? Well, now we've got the answer. It comes from one decision that was made in 2023, and it comes from a new character to this story. Full credit to Bloomberg for getting the scoop on this. And here's the story. Since autumn 2023, Microsoft Chief Financial Officer Amy Hood had set a target for Xbox, and that was that they must maintain a 30%, quote, accountability margin. Yes, an accountability margin, so, you know,
people like Amy Hood should be fired. It's the dumbest shit I've ever heard. 30% in an industry that doesn't even average 12 to 17%, and they're saying you need to hit 30%, almost double the industry standard. Sony's not hitting 30%. Nintendo might actually hit 30%, maybe. But almost nobody else is hitting 30% on every single year. The only way to hit 30% consistently is layoffs, AI to replace employees, and all these other random metrics, and getting like a mega massive viral hit every single year. It's just not humanly possible. And these MBAs who don't understand gaming or understand niches make these bad decisions, and it sours the brand, sours trust, sours like belief, sours the long-term like survivability and ethos of that franchise, of that ecosystem. It's truly a depressing situation.
You don't hit that, you're in deep trouble. And what that basically means is that it's Microsoft's term for profit margin on individual segments within the business. And here's the simple version. Whatever revenue Xbox margin.
And then you can see here, Xbox had a 12% profit margin for 3/4 of the company's 2022 fiscal year. Let's look at Nintendo profit margin in percentage, 2023. Net profit was 27%. In 2020, it was 20%. Let's look at Sony. Sony PlayStation profit margin 9.5% net profit. Okay, let's look at Take-Two. Take-Two net profit margin, well, that's for the -6%. That doesn't seem right. Annual gross profit was 54%. But what is the actual net profit? The net profit would be, net income was -4 billion. So Take-Two was losing money. What the fuck? I think it's a tax write-off because they're making more money year on year. So how are they losing 4 billion per year? Or acquisitions, corporate buyouts, or this is different. This isn't actually logic. This is like all corporate like accounting BS. They're not losing $4.4 billion a year. That's just, I would ignore that. That's incorrect in my opinion. What other major big game company is there? What was Activision Blizzard profit margin? 29.6%. So Activision Blizzard was 30%. Are they just basing this off Activision Blizzard being 30%? Did Microsoft just buy Activision Blizzard? Say every single one of our studios needs to now be matching Activision Blizzard? Who else is there? What else is like a major game? I mean, I'm gonna type EA here. EA was at 10%. What was Ubisoft at? Out of curiosity, Ubisoft is at 2% in 2022. 0.9, no wait, gross profit margin decreased. No. Net profit margin, here we go. Net profit, 0%. Let's do 3 years. Oh, damn it. A lot of these things aren't showing it accurately. Here we go. Net profit, minus 7%, 11%, 2023 minus 30%. Damn, Ubisoft was not performing well at all. So legitimately there was 2 companies, Activision Blizzard and fucking Nintendo, that were hitting high profit margins. And they're like, every single company has to, Xbox has to hit it across the board. Not even Sony was doing that.
On individual segments within the business. And here's the simple version. Whatever revenue Xbox makes from consoles, games, and subscriptions, the cost of doing that has got to be 30% less than what they bring in. And look, that is how big companies work. If you're not making profit, you're an Ubisoft. And then investors do start getting a little bit itchy, thinking about, should we do a hostile takeover? Should we, do some private equity and gut you like a fish? Of course, even in gaming, you do actually need enough profit that one bad game won't literally kill your whole company, or that one failed deal won't do similar. Looking at you, Embracer Group. But here's the problem.
The Embracer Group failed a $2 billion acquisition deal with Saudi Arabia. And it effectively led to Embracer Group selling off Borderlands, selling off Saber, selling off it split off dozens of studios. Yo, Tufter and Heel Wiles, thank you guys for the follow, and Sober Hangman, thank you very much as well, by the way.
A 30% margin on first-party game services is very much where eyebrows go up. And to get a handle on that, I want you to take a guess. What do you think Nintendo's profit margin is? What do you think?
I just looked this up, so it's not fair, but 29%.
PlayStation's profit margin is
12%.
Have a number in your head, and I'll tell you in a moment. But first, we need to talk about what this target has done to Xbox, because it does explain everything. Every quarter, Xbox leadership looks at their results, and if they don't see a 30% profit margin, they have a simple equation to balance. Cut things to get the margin. In Microsoft's eyes, Xbox is a group that is spending more than they are making, and that needs to change. That means less spending in staff. That means cancel support for third-party studios, like, say, the Romeros, who just got utterly fucked, right? Awful stuff. This is them literally being forced to break contracts with studios that have hired and paid for staff based on those active contracts. Crazy stuff. There have been cancelled projects that Xbox leadership love.
Like, the ZeniMax MMO is the most depressing one, because everyone that played it said this is amazing. This is gonna do numbers. This is gonna be incredibly popular and successful. And then Microsoft was like, that's gonna hit 13% profit margins year on year. That's not gonna cut it, cancel it. Do you know how BS it is? Do you know how bullshit it is?
Like ZeniMax's Project Blackbird. And the reason why is that they won't generate profits in the short term. Now, you might be able to understand that if you just try to juice your margin in the short term, it probably means you're underinvesting in your future, and that can mean you get outcompeted over time.
1 second, chat. I gotta go pick up a package at the front door. The sign for a package, apologies.
And this is actually one of the reasons why competition is a good thing, because competition actually exists to decrease profit margins by forcing companies to spend more money fighting for their consumers, and that's why we, the consumers, are supposed to win. I mean, hell, the games industry is one built off loss leaders. Loss leaders are obviously something they can't have anymore. As an example, dev kits for AAA companies are not sold at a loss. They just increase the price humongously. For reporting houses, it's the same deal. Now, the good news is that indies can still get free dev kits from their ID at Xbox program, but those big corporate spends of trying to help their partners develop good shit for their platform, yeah, well, those are now a lot more expensive for the developers.
It's truly a tragedy that we're watching the death of Xbox live firsthand, seeing it come crashing down before our eyes. I was an Xbox player every generation up until the PS5, and now I have a PS5. The last time I had a PlayStation was the PS3, and I got it on sale at the end of the generation, and that was alongside my Xbox. It's just a tragedy.
And publishers. Basically, Xbox's spending has got to change every year so that it stays within that tight 30% margin target. And it's all because of this mandate set by Amy Hood 2 years ago. And for this, the timing and the context matters, because everything changed around the time of the big acquisition. The date is the most important thing here, and it is fall 2023. That is right when the Activision Blizzard acquisition closed. And we've talked—
And like I said, Activision Blizzard King had 30% margins. Nintendo, 30% margins. Sony was at 10-12%, which is realistic for a company the size of Sony versus, Xbox. Nintendo's a separate beast, as is Activision Blizzard King. But
about
hey,
this
that
idea
doesn't
before,
matter.
that the spending on the deal got Microsoft to actually pay attention to Xbox. Now, in some ways, that was good stuff. They now get Call of Duty money, but, 75 billion deal value. That's quite a lot of billions. But that's not the only thing that happened, because from 2023, Microsoft got really excited about AI, and that meant they started regretting something. They kind of wished that that Activision Blizzard King money was going into funding more data centers. And the Bloomberg report does reinforce this, because before that date, teams did not worry about hitting arbitrary performance targets. The notion of investing a lot of money now in something that would get more money later was, a healthy—
Holy shit, you're telling me that the whole reason Xbox is dying is because they literally finished the deal just as AI started becoming a global phenomenon? Had AI started taking off, say, 2024 or 2025 instead, they wouldn't have cancelled all these studios or cut all these teams. None of that would have been happening. The whole reason this is all happening is because of some BS fucking AI shit. God damn. I fucking hate late stage capitalism at times. Jesus fucking Christ.
enough thing at the company. But then there was a corporate shift in how the business was ran and how it produced games. And here's a curious thing. It comes from Ethan Gatch writing for Kotaku, and he noticed a parallel. That Activision's operating margin was 32% the quarter before the deal closed. Did Microsoft just look at that and think, oh, if Activision can do it, we can as well? Which of course would be an insane thing, because Activision was, in many ways, Bobby's finely oiled Call of Duty machine. So of course it was designed to be pretty damn profitable. It's a little bit different from being a first-party player in the industry. Though I need to note that there's a lot of looseness in how margins even get calculated, and that's because operating margin doesn't always include non-product spending. That means things like tax. But take a look at some of these numbers. In 2022, Activision's net income versus total revenue was 20%. In 2021, it was 31%. And it fluctuated between 20 and 30% in prior years. You can almost connect the dots where Microsoft looks at their new acquisition with an incredibly high profit margin, and then they look at their existing game division and think, we expect more. And in some ways, yeah, sure, look at they screwed Halo and have screwed so many things since the Xbox One.
To be fair, Xbox probably could have been maintaining 15 to 21% realistically had they not shit the bed on so many different like Halo games, so many of the first party titles. Like I do feel like to a degree Xbox kind of deserves this fate from letting stupid fucking people run these studios, but I mean, hey.
But look, you can say a lot about Bobby Kotick's Activision Blizzard. You really can, and I have. But above all else, I think we can all agree it was a finely tuned money-making machine. It wasn't a finely tuned game-making machine because, let's be real, they made fewer and fewer different franchises as time went on. They essentially optimized everything into the things that they were running that did appear to be working well. And coming off the COVID boom especially, they basically found themselves with live service games that were massive money spinners. But they also had not been investing much in new games for the long-term future, because that's not what they...
And that is true. I've talked to first-party people whose whole studios were cut at Blizzard. For example, Warcraft 3 Reforged was meant to be a first-party game. It was meant to have Warcraft 1 and 3 in there from launch, and then Warcraft 2 was meant to be fully remade in-house later on. It was meant to have bonus campaigns and all these features, some of retail WoW's expansions built into bonus campaigns. It was meant to be this whole thing. And they cancelled it all because it wasn't going to make that much money. It wasn't part of Bobby Kotick's well-oiled money-making machine. They cancelled Warcraft 4 and StarCraft 3 multiple times. Diablo 3's second expansion got cancelled. Overwatch's story mode got cancelled, then rebooted, then cancelled again. They cancelled 3 MMOs since 2010, 12. They've cancelled a dozen unique games because they just weren't part of the well-oiled money-making machine. So Bobby Kotick made money, but he was not the most creative individual, which did stifle places like Blizzard and stuff who thrived on making unique games, which led to loss of talent. More and more talent jumped over to Riot or other studios. And the issue is, Blizzard is well-oiled. For the most part, they have a smooth system so long as things don't get randomly rug pulled from them by management. Warlords of Draenor. And the issue is, when they don't have that creative outlet, they're not the greatest studio and they're just told to just churn out random BS year on year. But when you leave Blizzard, you don't have that well-oiled machine anymore. That's why there's so many games made by ex-Blizzard dev and it's fucking garbage. Hot garbage.
As a third party, were optimized for. But the thing is, you cannot apply their logic to a first party like Xbox, because even Nintendo and PlayStation do not work that way. Remember the profit margin numbers I asked you to guess? Well, here are the answers. Nintendo's net profit margin last year was 23.9%. The year before, it was 29.3%. Pretty awesome. But that's because Nintendo...
And that's the worst part, John. The fact that things like PUBG, Fortnite, and now Arcade as well in the Halo universe speaks to that. They cancelled a Halo Helldivers game. They cancelled Halo Mega Bloks, like a full Halo, not Minecraft, a full Halo Lego game, or Mega Bloks game, completely cancelled. A lot of these games are getting close to finishing as well. The Halo MMO, there's so many amazing Halo projects that got canned because of dog shit leadership. And this is Nintendo right here.
Nintendo are laser focused like Activision, and even with that, they cannot consistently hit 30%. As for PlayStation, they had 8.8% and then 6.7% respectively. This is pretty rough. Now, these guys are Xbox's closest competitors. They are mass-market console producers representing opposite ends of the spectrum. And Bloomberg notes that the industry average ranges from 17 to 22%, and that Xbox was resting between 10 and 20%. So it's not unreasonable for Microsoft to ask Xbox to increase margins, especially since the division hasn't really worked that well since the Xbox 360.
Right, but asking them to go from, say, 15% to 22% is a realistic ask. Asking them to go from, let's say, 12% to 30% is fucking outlandish. You don't just overnight hit 30 fucking percent. That's not how it works. That's not how any fucking thing, you don't just overnight suddenly double or triple your whole fucking net operating margin.
The era. But there's a problem with that, and that problem is the size of the increase they were asking for and the timing. Mandating Xbox to hit 30% within a few years is healthy and reasonable. That is them growing the business. But just demanding 30% now, regardless of what you're going to lose in hitting that, well, that creates chaos. Chaos that we have all seen. It creates an Xbox that cannot do long-term planning. I mean, at what stage do we just look at Phil Spencer and think, wow, that guy's a liar? Now, from everything I understand, he's one of the last, him and Sarah Bond are some of the last forces just holding the worst shit at bay. But you can imagine from their perspective, every plan that they make seemingly gets destroyed by these insane targets that have been given to them. Just take exclusive games as an example. Halo Campaign Evolved and Forza Horizon 6 were announced to launch on the PS5. And the reason why is simple. Xbox had a long-term plan. That plan was to make Game Pass great value using a credit system so the developer sales were not a factor even with them having waning console sales. But now they need the 30% target. And with that, games need to be more profitable, and they need to be more profitable faster. And that means launching on the biggest console, where any amount of sales will help move that needle. But, of course, what it also will do is completely cede their ground on the hardware space. Because right now, to buy an Xbox is foolish. Just buy a PlayStation.
Yeah, pretty
it's
much. Like I said, it's truly a travesty because I wanted to be an Xbox gamer. But, like, all I've seen from Xbox is failure after failure, L after L. Halo Infinite was the straw that caused me to get a PS5. I got a PS5 because of Halo Infinite's launch. Like I said, there's so many issues with Microsoft and Xbox. But Amy Hood is a piece of shit for what she's done. I get that it probably even comes from above her, Satya Nadella. But none of these people care. They don't give a singular shit about this. It doesn't affect them. Like, I bet you Amy Hood will never once watch any fucking videos or any articles about her because she's taking home a $1 million a month paycheck. They don't give a shit. We don't mean anything to them. It doesn't affect them.
Console with a better games library, and a games library that's going to include all the Microsoft stuff. So why even bother with Xbox? And what that does is it tanks their hardware sales. It makes Xbox, as the platform that most consumers understand it, look completely directionless. Like they've got no clear plan to actually compete in the game space. They have a plan to make money off games, but not a plan to compete in the way that we would want them to. In the way that would, force PlayStation to be better. And here's the thing. They're not just competing in the game space. They're competing inside Microsoft. Okay, so remember when I flagged Satya Nadella at the start of this video? Well, this year, our boy Satya is getting a pay rise of 22% up to 96.5 million in total comp. Well done, Satya. Now, GameFile spotted something goddamn interesting. That Xbox just met their revenue growth target for the first time since 2021, where they achieved 15% content and services revenue growth against a 14% goal. Happy days, and that sure made the CEO get his lovely stock-based payout. Every other year, other divisions made their goals and kept Nadella happy, but Xbox did not. Now, in theory, this would mean that he would have personal incentive to
So Satya Nadella to take home an extra, exactly how much was it? Let me scroll back. Let me see.
0.5.
Satya Nadella took home an extra $17 million. An extra $17 million. Look at Amy Hood. Her bonus was $30 million. She made an extra $15 million in 2 years since her directive. Satya Nadella went from 50 million to 80 to 96. It's genuine BS that these guys have their bonuses situated off of what's actually just killing Xbox got these guys a bonus. They just don't give a fuck. They don't care and they never will.
Time since 2021, where they achieved 15%. The CEO get his lovely stock-based payout. Every other year, other divisions made their goals and kept Nadella happy, but Xbox did not. Now, in theory, this would mean that he would have personal incentive to improve Xbox because if all the divisions are doing better, then, well, the board can better justify increases in his compensation. Now, in reality, it's all part of the same system. It's all part of Microsoft. And it's a system that we suggested means that Microsoft doesn't really care about Xbox that much. And the reason is that they don't care about Xbox as a division that makes games as a part of the games industry. They care about Xbox as a division that makes profits within Microsoft. Those are two completely different missions.
And it does explain why Microsoft is effectively gutting and strangling Xbox as a whole. Because it just checks out. That's not about gaming. They don't give a shit about gaming. They give a shit about hitting those profit metrics to make Microsoft stock go up. Not about Xbox thriving, but Microsoft bonuses and shareholder stakes.
for Xbox. And for us on the outside, it means they have fundamentally changed. It means that they are now a junior competitor against the likes of PlayStation. And it means that we can no longer expect them to take us big swings, to try to define the future of the industry, to change its direction, to drive new types of hardware and new experiences, to do interesting shit that furthers games as a medium. That won't happen. Because what they need to do is generate profit for their overall entity. An entity that really doesn't give a shit about games. And on the topic, do you know what's an existential threat to a company? Cocking up your GTA killing game so much that just shy of 100 staff have done a big open letter against you. It is quite the story, bit of a hilarious shit show, pretty bad for the people involved, and you can learn all about it in this video next.
So it's a good video by Belly. There'll be a link in the description down below. You guys can go and check it out. Guy makes a lot of news, a lot of videos and articles. He's got a whole team that do all their research, so it's a really good creator. You guys should check him out. Sub to him if you haven't subbed yet. But it does suck, and it does genuinely hurt to effectively watch Xbox fall apart. I was an Xbox gamer since 2003, 4, since the OG Halo, which came out in 2001, I think. I think I got an Xbox in 2002 or 3. And then from there, I was an Xbox gamer up until the very end. Effectively, the PS3, like, it was the end of Xbox 360. It's just a tragedy. To watch Xbox die has truly hurt me, like, in my heart. It's a fucking travesty. Thank you all for watching. Fuck it, it is what it is.